After having three people looking at the Afghan situation from more or less the outside, now we will now look more from the inside, and we will have some messages first from abroad, from victims of the Afghanistan situation, and we will start with Mr. Vice Yamin.
I'll pass to you a message from Vice Yamin. I met him a few years ago in Afghanistan when I followed the process against Asadullah Sawari, the head of Aqsa. He lost his father and his uncle. I tell you his message, which he has sent from Kabul. It was June 1978. We lived at that time in the province of Laghman, where my father worked as a school teacher. I was around 7 years old. It was a sunny day and I played outside with my friends when I saw that a few unknown gunmen arrested my father and my uncle. My uncle was just 3 months ago married. I and nobody didn't know why they were arrested. Common was that in those days a lot of people were taken by the government secret police. After 2 days, they were transferred to Kabul, Ministry of Interior Affairs. Just in 20 minutes, they have been transported by the Aqsa agents to Shudehء investigation in torture center. After 3 days, we succeeded to reach the headquarters of Aqsa to bring them some clothes. But the officers told us that that is not necessary anymore. We don't need to come again. We were desperate. Almost 35 years we waited for them, each day, each hour, each minute. Finally, after the publication of the dead lists, there came an end to it. Yes, their names were on that list. Number 2043, 403, and number 2404. So it was time for us to accept a better reality that we ignored for decades. They will never come back. It was time to mourn. A friend of mine, whose father was also on the list, said to me, "You are fortunate that you have seen your father and experienced the warmth of his presence." I came to the world just a month after he was arrested and disappeared. How relative is to be fortunate.
Thank you. Then Mr. Shamsoria will read a message from the Association of Justice Seekers inside Afghanistan.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to read you the message received from the Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers. Dear friends, first of all, let me thank the Federation of Afghan Refugee Organization and AIR. All Afghan compatriots and democratic and progressive individuals and organizations who gathered here to raise their voice against injustice. In the beginning, I would like to say a few words about Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers. Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers was established in 2007 by a group of victims' families. Our aim is to raise the voice of victims and to bring justice in Afghanistan. Our association looks as a main task to document war crimes and bring to justice the perpetrators of such crimes who are having full immunity under the present government in Afghanistan. Since 2007, we have arranged several programs for justice seeking, which fortunately linked us to a big number of victims' families across the world, the country. Last year, the release of death list containing the names of 5,000 victims who were murdered by Russian servants between 1978 and 1979 once again reopened the wounds of our people and the victims' families. The release of this list remembered barbarity and brutality of the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan. This is not the only crime committed by Khalqis and Pachamis. To be clear, that's the PDPA. They have hanged thousands of freedom lovers and intellectuals in Polycharchy, polygons, and other provinces. Massacres of 1,200 people in Karala district of Kunar province, representing the 24th of Hud uprising of Herat people, Chandawal uprising in Kabul, and other resurrections organized by people against Russians and their lackeys, which have been repressed by them is another part of their crimes. Dear friends and compatriots, we all know that the crime records in Afghanistan is not ending under the sovereignty of Khalqis and Pachamis. After victory of jihadi fractions, thousands of innocent people have been killed. Only in Kabul, 65,000 people were killed and the city was destroyed completely. Most of our people left their homes and immigrated to the foreign countries. Maybe among you, there are so many Afghans who remember those dark days. In the Taliban regime, again, this was civilians who had most of casualties in both sides of the conflicts. We remember the massacres of Yakaulang, Mazar, Shamali, and other provinces committed by brutal and barbaric Taliban. And finally, after Taliban collapse, in the formation of new US-supported government, the crimes didn't stop, and even we are witnessing several new types of betrayal and corruption in the country. Once again, the criminals of 3 decades have been installed in key position of the government for continuing their crimes. Massacres of our innocent people by blind bombing of United States NATO troops is a routine incident. Corruption and insecurity is reaching its peak. Rape cases of girls and women are increasing. Narcotics production has changed Afghanistan to one of the unpopular countries in the world, where the profit of this black business goes to the pockets of ruling smugglers in the government and their foreign masters. The United States occupied Afghanistan under the banner of human rights and war on terror, but during 13 years of military and political presence in Afghanistan, they have done the worst crimes against human rights in the country. The life and death of Afghan children, women, and men are not important for them. They only need a group of criminals for justification of their presence and its continuation. The United States policy of Police of Holland, NATO, or the United Nations, none of them will bring justice to our homeland. In the last 30 years, they have betrayed the victims because they support perpetrators of such atrocities in Afghanistan. We should not expect anything from organizations who are linked to the United States. The United States knows if the door to justice opens in Afghanistan, first of all, they should be brought to justice, face the consequences of their crimes in Afghanistan. On the other hand, the United States needs such criminals to help them reach their goals. Hence, it's obvious that they would not let to trial or punish those criminals. The slogan of "We should forget the past" is a slogan which is serving the war criminals in the United States. More than the others, the United States luckies want such thing to escape from justice. Forgetting the past means repeating the same barbaric crimes in the future. If Afghanistan is not clearing its past, it will feed and encourage impunity and will never be able to reach democracy and social justice. The reason behind brutality of Taliban, Islamic Party of Gulbuddin, Haqqani Network, and other bloody terrorist groups is the wrong policy of Karzai in the United States, calling them brothers and doing secret deals with them. Such policy will encourage those criminals to continue their crimes and victimize our people. Dear compatriots, the struggle against criminals is a progressive struggle which needs sacrifice, hardship, suffering, and patience because they never tolerate the vices of justice seekers. Our association is taking the risk to work and continue its efforts under the sovereignty of criminals in power. Defending the victims and persecution of criminals is not possible with releasing statements. This is a war which needs action. We should go to the victims, organize them, mobilize them, help them rise and change them to a power which should be able to trial the criminals. This is the only way of justice seeking in a truly and meaningful struggle for justice. There are so many transitional justice organizations which are working with the financial support of the Western countries. Most of those organizations are led by criminals or connected to the criminals who have the mission to undermine the efforts of justice seekers with the pretension of helping them. Most of their activities are limited to meetings. They have practically done nothing and has never taken any steps towards bringing the war criminals into justice. Among them is, for example, the Human Rights Commission as a governmental organization serving criminals and mafias who are in the government. Its commissioners are designated by Presidential Palace to protect the criminals. They are not even ready to release the documents which they are having in their custody. The Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers believes that bringing justice and persecuting criminals is only possible with the support, cooperation, and power of Afghan people. No organization or foreign country can bring justice, peace, and democracy to our people, and they do not want to. We want from all democratic individuals and justice seekers inside and outside the country to join us in our struggle to bring justice to the victims' families. We should not forget that the victims of the 3 decades of war are having deep hatred against criminals. They would like to see them tried, brought into justice, and prosecuted. As long as the ruling regime is formed by criminals of 4 decades, they would never take any practical steps and measures towards listening to the cry and voices of Afghan people. From our establishment on, in each and every action we had very specific demands which are listed below. We want an urgent removal of all criminals from the period of Khalqis and Pachamis, PDPA, sovereignty, the periods of fascist jihadi fractions sovereignty, the violent and terror era of Taliban in the period after the Taliban until now from their governmental positions. We demand to immediately stop killing civilians and innocent people by the United States and NATO, whose war crimes have to be tried in the International Court of Law for the war criminals in The Hague. We strongly condemn naming the buildings, streets, roads, squares, and roundabouts after the name of criminals and call it an insult and disgrace to the blood of our innocent martyrs. We demand to have a memorial monument in the name of our missing unknowns, and further to allocate a plot to be called Graveyard of Martyrs, where the dead bodies from the mass graves to be buried with honor and respect. We call upon all our compatriots in Afghanistan and abroad who have lost their children, brothers and sisters, relatives and theirs in the last 30 years to contact and share with us the way the martyrdom or disappearance took place, and to join us and support us in our efforts for prosecution of the criminals over the last 4 decades. Let's unite to make our voice louder and dominant. So, Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers. Thank you.
We also have a message from Assembly of Afghan Justice Seekers in Ottawa in Canada. And I've been asked to read this message to you. Dear friends and countrymen, participants in the Hague seminar on the Afghan death lists. On behalf of the Afghan Assembly of Justice Seekers in Canada, I salute you and your noble cause in pursuit of justice to all victims of atrocities over the past 35 years in our benighted country, Afghanistan. The Afghan Assembly of Justice Seekers is composed of the friends and families of the victims of atrocities committed by the Khalqi-Pakami regime. But we feel that justice cannot be selective, and it is only in calling for the perpetrators of all atrocities committed during the past 3.5 decades in our country that we can hope to honor the victims and see justice served. During these past 3.5 decades, a whole Afghan generation has come up for whom what occurred in years gone by is hearsay history, and there are many who suffered and witnessed firsthand the unspeakable horrors and atrocities of those days, who are either with us no more or whose memories have become dim with the passage of years. But one thing has not dimmed and will never dim with the passage of time: the search for answers and the call for justice. For the Afghan people in general and families of the victims in particular, what makes this period in our recent history particularly painful is the fact that during the whole past 3.5 decades, not one person has been officially charged with the murders and atrocities committed by different actors during different stages of the conflict. Known perpetrators of all the heinous crimes that have been committed against the people during all those years have either been legitimized and serve in government position in Afghanistan or live amongst us as immigrants here in the democratic countries of the world where human life and dignity are respected and cherished. It is extremely unfortunate that the Afghan people and their friends and supporters, whether in Afghanistan or abroad, lack the organization, resources and support to call such known perpetrators to account and to identify and indict as yet unidentified perpetrators of those atrocities before a court of law. This is where we, the intellectuals and activists of the Afghan diaspora, can concentrate our energies. What is needed is concerted effort towards establishing an international truth-finding, research, investigation and coordination center to investigate and document crimes against humanity committed by different political entities during different phases of the violence in Afghanistan over the past 35 years, and to identify and indict the perpetrators of those crimes. We have no hope in the government of Afghanistan, mired as it is in corruption and infested with shady characters of all hues. Very unfortunately, it does not seem with the present line-up of presidential hopefuls that the future government of Afghanistan will be any better. Only we, intellectuals and activists of the Afghan diaspora in the West and our friends and supporters can take the lead. We must explore the possibilities and resources in the countries where we reside and pressure the governments of our adopted countries to render the support that is needed for such a venture. But it is for us to take the initiative and to be the motor. After 35 years of war and violence, of injustice and corruption, of devastation and wounds on the psyche of the people, we Afghans are famished for peace. But as the past years since the overthrow of the Taliban have shown, peace without justice will only be a prelude to further violence and upheaval. Many are of the unshakable belief that one of the main reasons for the resurgence of the Taliban is the corruption that stems from criminals of the past being legitimized through a travesty of democracy. Had transitional justice, one of the key demands of the Geneva Accords, which form the cornerstone of the post-Taliban political setup in Afghanistan, had been implemented, and if justice were seen to be done, or at least respected, the situation in Afghanistan today would have been much different from what it is. It is in truth and justice that we can place our hope for a peaceful and stable Afghanistan. And it is in working for peace and justice that we can provide support and assistance to our people and our homeland. Let us hope that renewed support for the cause of justice to the victims you are gathered to honor will usher in a new era of hope of the people of Afghanistan and the people of the world. Once again, I salute you and your endeavors. Respectfully yours, Dr. Hamid Sabib, Coordinator, Assembly of Afghan Justice Seekers.